Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Avenue podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Simonis. This is the 47th episode. I would like to say thank you to everyone who listens and the continuous support that I get, and I greatly appreciate everybody. And today, I have a special guest, and he is currently in Dallas working for Cumulus Media. He has worked for ESPN, CBS Radio, iHeartMedia. I would like to welcome Bruce Gilbert, who's been around the sports industry for a long time. Bruce, how you doing, man?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Congratulations on 47 episodes. That's hard work. I appreciate the effort that you put into this.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Bruce. People like you that I have the ability to talk to doesn't happen without you people, so I would like to say thank you. And I just want to say, let's just start off. Talk about your journey throughout the sports broadcasting industry.
So I'm a radio brat. My dad was in the radio business, so I started hanging out at radio stations when I was 5 years old, and all I wanted to be was a disc jockey. And I broke into the business in music radio in the mid 80s because I'm a really old guy, and floundered around and thought I could be a disc jockey. Then I realized that all the people around me were so much better that I needed to do something different. So I got into management, and it really was a stroke of luck. In the early to mid 90s, I was working in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we had a news talk station that carried the Steelers. And at that time, the Fan was doing sports radio in New York, but virtually, very few other stations were doing it. And I got the opportunity there to start messing with a lot more sports production. And then I was able to parlay that into a job offer here in Dallas at what was this small AM radio station at 1310 on the dial, KTCK AM, which was The Ticket. And I was lucky enough to get hired by The Ticket in 1997, 3 years after it had gone on the air. And to be honest with you, I was driving from Pittsburgh to Dallas thinking, all right, I've been in music radio, I've been on these giant FM radio stations, and now I'm driving from Pennsylvania to Texas. I'd hardly ever been in Texas in my life, and I'm going to work at a small 5,000 watt AM radio station. My career is over. And little did I know that my career was actually just beginning to boom thanks to the incredibly talented people that I was able to work with at the Ticket in Dallas. And I realized that I was having the very fortunate opportunity to combine two major passions in my life, the radio business and sports. And once I got that all happening at the Ticket, I've been extremely fortunate to be a lot of other places, as you mentioned at the beginning here, since I came to the Ticket to get into sports radio in 1997, which was 22 years ago now. So I've been very fortunate and worked with a lot of smart people that have really helped me learn and grow. And I feel like I'm still learning and growing. And if I stop learning and growing, then I probably need to hang it up, because it's a ever-changing business where you have to evolve, and you do that through learning from other people that are around you that are smarter than you.
And I can attest to what you're saying because I'm currently going to broadcasting school, and it's always ever changing and it's always moving around. And I haven't even hit the door yet, so I completely understand where you're coming from. But I do want to ask you, how did you talked about getting into the radio business. Where did your passion for sports come from?
I was just a sports fan all my life. I mean, I was around, and my dad was a big sports fan. I was born in Illinois. I came out of the womb as a Cubs fan, and baseball was a sport that I played when I was little. And then through some of the places we moved around with my dad having different jobs, also fell in love with hockey. So those were the sports I played, baseball and hockey. But I followed it all. And I was 16 when ESPN came on the air in 1979, and I just thought that was the coolest thing in the history, that there was a channel that was going to be all sports. And when you're 16, you got plenty of time to sit in front of the television and study it all and follow it. And I just was lucky to like I say, be able to combine this passion I had for the immediacy and the theater of the mind of radio with this passion for sports and athletes and coaches and teams and all of the drama that surrounds sports. So it's been a really fun venture. And again, I feel extremely fortunate to have had those opportunities that I've had.
So how did you end up getting really into the radio business and combining that with sports? Was it after you graduated high school, then you just started working your way up, or was this something that just over time grew?
Well, again, I had the good fortune of my father being in the business, and he ran a radio station in Binghamton, New York when I was really a freshman in high school. I was 14 years old. I started operating the board during Broom Dusters hockey games. The Broom Dusters were an East Coast Hockey League, a minor league hockey team that played in Binghamton, New York. And the radio station that my father was the general manager for carried those games live. And so I learned how to run the board. And, they didn't want me to talk on the air for obvious reasons. I was only 14. They were probably breaking child labor laws the way it was. But I would go in and run the board for the play-by-play announcer and the color analyst for the Broom Dusters hockey game. So really, my first foray into business, even though I wanted to be a disc jockey and I wanted to play records and be a rock and roll disc jockey, my first job was running a sports production. And it was a blast and I loved it. And what I really loved is if the games ended early enough, I got to play a couple of records to get to the top of the hour in news. And it really was records. I'm using that term properly. It was real vinyl. Uh, and that's how old I am. But yeah, that was my first break. And so then my passion was really, getting those jobs in radio. And I was fortunate to work full time when I was in high school, and just kept at it, and really have not stopped working in the radio business since that time that I was 14 years old. So I've been very, very fortunate.
And you said you grew up being a Cubs fan and a hockey fan. What was your favorite sport between the two?
Baseball by far. Baseball has always been my love. It still is. I love the game, and I think a lot of it's because I'm extremely analytical, and there's so many analytics to baseball, and it's been interesting to watch that development too because I'm a guy that's always loved stats and been kind of a geek and a nerd for those things and what's happened with the onset of Bill James and Moneyball and so I still find great passion in the analytics and the strategy of the game. I think it's got a lot of thinking to it, a lot of nuances that I find fascinating and interesting, and so I still find that to be a true love.
Then let's talk about, because baseball is kind of seemed like its glory days are growing past for people, like considering that I would say the popularity of it is kind of like dimmed a little bit, putting the spotlight on the NFL, primarily the NFL. Why do you think that is?
Because it's a slow game. And again, if you don't appreciate the nuances and the strategies, and look, it's a commitment. I watch a ton of baseball, but I'm the demographic. I'm an old white guy. Those are the people that are still watching baseball. Baseball has a huge problem because they're not attracting young people. I have a 10-year-old son who loves baseball and plays it. I don't think he's watched more than a half inning on television, and he plays the game well and is on a team that does really well, but he just doesn't want to watch it on TV. It bores him now. He'll watch highlights. He'll watch the highlight shows, which I think is more of what's happening in today's world. So that's just a reality, and I totally accept that. And I'm not one of these old purists that thinks, even though I love a lot of the strategy and stuff, I think baseball has to take a serious look at how they make either the game shorter, the season shorter, or both, because they are falling behind when you look at what's happening, particularly with the NFL and how exciting that is, and some of the other sports that have continued to have success across some of the digital platforms like the UFC and the WWE and those types of things. But I think I'm in the demographic that romanticizes baseball because when we were kids, that's what we did. We went outside and played ball all day, no matter how hot it was. We didn't have some of the choices that they have then, and it's I think that it's but for all the right reasons. Everything progresses. I think it's good. I think progress is good. I think change is good. Like I say, I don't sit at home and cry about the fact that baseball isn't getting younger fans. I still love it, but I get its place it's in a different place now than when it was, and for some of the right reasons and some of the wrong reasons, and they have to evolve like everything else. And I think sometimes some of these sports get hooked on the history, and they can't see that they need to adapt.
And what do you
This is
think?
my personal opinion, by the way.
Oh no, no,
For what it's worth.
no, I completely understand. But how do you think the MLB should adapt to attract a younger audience? Because, like you said, the attention span. And I think that has to do with the attention span of people is continuing to lower. Therefore, baseball's a slow game. You're not attracting the general eye then.
I think that's true. I mean, who knows? I people much smarter than me will have to figure that out. But certainly they're trying some things. They're working on pitch clocks in the minor leagues. They've started putting base runners on in scoring position and extra innings so the games don't go super long. But I think as you look at the toll on guys' bodies, they really first have to focus on 162 games and 9 innings per game, and the number of pitches these guys have to throw. Because if you look, strikeouts are up dramatically. And what they don't talk about a lot with strikeouts being up dramatically is that it takes a lot more pitches to strike a guy out than get someone to, hit a ground ball or a fly ball on the first pitch. So there's more pitching changes. The pitching changes are painful, and it can take forever, especially in the late innings. So I think they do have to take a hard look at that. But as you know, those things are easy to say, and there's potential things they could try. But what it all comes back to always is the money. And if you're one of those guys that has one of those teams and you paid that much money for the team and for the players, you aren't really in favor of taking away home dates, because that's another day that you can't sell tickets and you can't sell parking and you can't sell beer and hot dogs. And so it's pretty hard to go to those guys and say, well, you've been getting 81 games, but what if you only got 60 games or 50 games? That's a huge drop off in revenue for those owners.
And especially when you talked about the strikeout rate increasing, and that also goes to show how the home run rate increase has been increasing. And people have rumored that it's the juiced ball. Do you think that's true?
I don't know. There's been rumors of that. I think even before the steroid era, there was a lot of talk at different times during baseball when home runs would go up that perhaps, there was a juice ball, theory then, and that there had been times in the past when they felt like if they, made the home run a bigger part of the game, it would make it sexier and more people would come to the ballpark again. I don't think anybody has empirical data to back that up, but it is what it is. I mean, I get that these things change and they'll have to continue to look at that.
And also, I want to also talk about with baseball these big, gigantic contracts that are being dealt out. Do you think that's good for the MLB being able to pay these gigantic contracts, or do you might think that might be a bad thing?
Well, look, I'm all for people getting rich. I mean, I think anybody, that has a chance to make that kind of money and has that kind of talent should absolutely take it. And I cheer them and applaud them. And my answer to that question is always, if the owners couldn't afford it, they wouldn't do it. And these owners are billionaires. And if that's what they feel they have to do to, fulfill whatever pressure they're under, with their board of directors or with their fan base, then, that's just the natural evolution of things. Back when players were only making $30,000 a year, people thought they were making way too much money. So I don't think that's really changed. What's changed is there's just a whole lot more zeros on the end of the contracts.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that because at the end of the day, if these players are providing value, and especially with a team like the Yankees, where they are supposed to be in contention every year, they have to do what they can to sign a guy like Garrett Cole to a tremendous deal to keep him.
No question. And I always laugh when people get mad at the athlete that gets the contract. It's like, if you had a chance to get that contract, you wouldn't say no. You would say, where do I sign?
Or can I get
So
more?
yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't blame the players.
Oh no, I don't think that's fair because at the end of the day, if you're going to complain about a
Yeah,
man trying to do what he or man or woman trying to do what they can to provide for themselves and their families, then that's kind of hypocritical because you're trying to do the same thing.
that's right. That's right. No doubt about it. If some owner wants to pay me a really stupid salary to run their sports station, I would absolutely consider
Hmm.
it. No doubt about it.
What are some other sports besides baseball and hockey that you enjoy watching? Is it just kind of all of the sports, like a plethora of sports, or do you have like besides baseball and hockey?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. Baseball is my favorite sport to watch because it was my favorite sport to play, and for all the reasons we talked about. But I love football. I mean, how can you not? Football is made for television. It's so great on TV. You can see the plays develop. There's enough time to replay almost every play before the next play. Every 30 seconds they line up for basically an all-out war at the line of scrimmage. I mean, football is fantastic to watch on television and in person. But I mean, it's so made for TV because it's got all that action and the quickness and the speed, and the athletes just keep getting better and better. And I definitely love pro football over college football. I think simply because I didn't have that connection to any specific college personally, and the friends that I have that are huge college fans, many of them either went to a big football school or went to a school in a conference where football was huge. Not that I don't enjoy watching college football, but it's harder to follow because you don't know the players as well, and there's so many teams. But the NFL is a ritual. In fact, I'm stoked for this weekend because there's 3 games on Saturday as well as all the games on Sunday. So it's like an NFL Christmas festival coming up this weekend. It'll be terrific.
And definitely. And who are some of your favorite? Who are some of your favorite teams in just in sports in general, and some favorite players of yours?
Yeah, it's interesting because I kept my Illinois roots with the Cubs. That's been my diehard fan since birth. But in other sports, I've kind of adopted some teams along the way. As I mentioned, I lived in Pittsburgh for about 7 years, and our radio station carried the Steelers game. So I became a real big Steelers fan because I have so much respect for the Rooney family and not only how they run the football team in Pittsburgh, but what they mean to that community and how much they've given back to Pittsburgh and the surrounding areas. They really exemplify what being good community citizens are all about. So it was hard. It was impossible, I would even say, not hard. It was impossible not to become a fan of the Steelers when you live in Pittsburgh. That town lives and dies by that team. It's a great sports town. People are blue collar, hardworking, and they live for their Stillers, as they call them in Pittsburgh. And so I'm a huge Steelers fan. I really admire them and how they run that franchise. I've been really lucky with hockey in that I've lived in some cities with some really great teams. I lived in Pittsburgh when Mario Lemieux and Yamir Yager were there, and they won a couple of Stanley Cups. I lived in Dallas when the Stars won their only Stanley Cup in 1999 with Brett Hall and Mike Modano. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a few years when Ovechkin had joined the Capitals. And while they didn't win the whole thing when I was there, they were super fun to watch. So I think I'm just generally a hockey fan. I'll watch a hockey game anytime if it's on. I can't pass it up. So those are my favorites.
So, being a sports broadcaster, did you have the ability to go to all these different games and watch them in person?
Yeah, I've been very, very lucky. I mean, I try not to ever take it for granted. Part of my job overseeing Westwood One Sports is we have a team of incredible professionals led by Howard Dinneroff, who's our executive vice president and producer of all of our live play-by-play sporting events. And so, we carry every Sunday, Monday, and Thursday night game on Westwood One and distribute it to radio stations across the entire country. We also carry all of the NFL playoffs and the Super Bowl. So I've been really lucky to be able to get to go to Super Bowls, Final Fours. When I was at ESPN, we had Major League Baseball, and I was able to attend some World Series games. And I will tell you that those are incredible perks, and I never, ever want to take them for granted. And every time I have the opportunity, I kind of pinch myself. Here I am at the Super Bowl. How many people would kill to have the opportunity to be at a game like this? And I get to do it as part of my job. So it's a really outstanding side benefit that I, again, really enjoy, feel very blessed to have the opportunity to be part of.
So, what Super Bowls did you attend?
Oh man, so I've been to several of them. I'm not a guy that keeps a log or keeps track. The first one I went to was Super Bowl 30, which was the Steelers and the Cowboys. And I went because I was working at the station that carried the Steelers. And that was the first time I ever had a chance to attend. And it was ironic that they were playing the Cowboys because the next year I went to work in Dallas. And so it was Steelers and my Pittsburgh station. And then I moved to Dallas. And while we didn't have the Cowboys on our station, if you know anything about Dallas, this town also revolves around its NFL franchise and everything to do with the Cowboys. So it was kind of cool that that was my first one. But I've been to several since. I've been to some really great games. And I don't think I've missed one. I think I've been to five straight, the last five, as part of my job with Westwood One. So again, I feel incredibly blessed to have the opportunity to attend Super Bowls and other sporting events, even regular season games. I still get excited when I'm in a stadium. It's electric and it's cool.
And that's what I say when even when I watch baseball on TV. I think like everyone says like baseball on TV is better because you have all the different angles, and I disagree. I love going to like those baseball games during the regular season because I just love being in person and getting to feel that energy. I went to the Baltimore Cleveland game last year when the Browns won. I think it was the last game Hugh Jackson won, and it was off that little field goal that no one knew went in until like a couple seconds later, and it was just crazy. You don't get that energy anywhere else besides a stadium.
No, you don't. And I couldn't agree with you more, especially on baseball. I mean, baseball is part of the reason I love baseball is the ballpark and that atmosphere and, a hot sunny day and a cold beer and you feel like you got no troubles in the world and you can just take a deep breath and smell the grass and watch baseball. And to me, that's Americana at its finest. And again, I know I'm romanticizing it, but that truly is those ballparks are shrines, especially places like Wrigley Field and Fenway Park. If you've had the chance to be to those kind of places, and it does take you back in time a little bit. But the energy of a stadium is pretty special, and getting opportunities to go there. And look, it's getting harder and harder. It's expensive. It really is, especially if you have a family and you want to take your kids. But it's really cool that we have those opportunities.
And not to mention how, like, the accessibility of these free streaming devices, like Yahoo Sports, for example, I can watch multiple football games on my phone for free. And that all you have to do is pay your phone bill, and you get
Yep.
Yahoo Sports for free. So that hurts the stadiums because they have to jack their prices up so they can make their buck.
That's right. Yep. It all plays into the ecosystem, and it all comes back to money. You're absolutely right.
And what would you say is your favorite sporting event you've ever attended?
Oh man. Uh, well, I got to go to one of the Cubs playoff games in 2016. I wasn't able to go to any of the World Series games, but unfortunately, they got shut out by Kershaw, who was amazing in that game. But it was still just electrifying to be at that game. I was at Game 4 between the Red Sox and Cardinals in 2004 when the Red Sox broke their curse and won their first World Series. That was pretty spectacular. The Super Bowl where the Giants beat the Patriots and the Patriots were on their way to an undefeated season. That was in Phoenix. That was an amazing game to
Oh,
be at.
you saw the
This
catch. Oh, you
I
saw the
saw the catch, the helmet catch. I sure did. I was there when Tyree, clasped it against his helmet and made that remarkable catch. And in fact, I was with somebody who worked for me that was a major New York Giants fan, so it was really cool to be there with him too, because that was just fantastic for him as a guy who grew up in the New York City area and was a huge fan. And so sometimes the fun of it is being with someone who's getting a great charge out of it. My wife, her mom's family is from Louisiana, and her and I were able to attend the Saints Colts Super Bowl that the Saints won, and that was remarkable and really cool to be with her because all of her family grew up Saints fans. So it's those passions, it's those, it's not just the games, it's the teams and
the
the
culture.
cities and the culture and how those teams are interwoven through families and histories of families and how they tie fathers with daughters and fathers with sons and families together. And it's apolitical, and you look at the divisiveness in our country right now with our political system. And sports is that one safe haven where you can go and cheer for a team next to someone who might have completely opposite political values as you and a completely different social upbringing and different economic lifestyles, yet you can cheer for the same team side by side and yell and scream for your heroes and not worry about the differences, but rather focus on the things that you care about collectively. And I think that's what makes sports such an amazing part of our culture, and what makes sports media such an exciting career and such an exciting opportunity for people that want to be in the sports business.
And what has sports media allowed you to be, as well as, I mean, being a sports fan, what did the sports media opportunity, being in this business, give you the chance to do?
Well, it gives me the chance to do what I love, right? And I mean, you spend a lot of hours in your life working. And so if you have the opportunity to work a job that you feel like you would absolutely do for free if you didn't have to pay bills, then I think you've really got one up on life. Because I have friends and family that hate their jobs and they got to go to them because they got to pay the bills. And I feel really bad for those people because life's short, man. It's a short journey. We're only here for a little bit of time, and when we're here, we ought to have the good fortune of being able to do a job that we take great pride in, do a job that we feel like we have great passion for, do a job with people that have those same passions. And it's just allowed me to be around sports in general. It's allowed me to meet some really cool people that are team owners and players and coaches, and it's just allowed me to continue to be a little kid. I don't want to grow up, man. And sports radio and sports media has allowed me to hold on to those childhood things like my love of baseball and my love of sports in general, and then to apply that to whatever is important in the construct of our particular business and what we're trying to achieve as a business. And that's a pretty lucky path that I've been able to walk on, and I again don't take it for granted.
And that's the thing. That's why I love sports too, because it's just something that it's just crazy to think that a lot of these people that like for you, you get to go to these games and get paid to go to these games. Like that's something that like sports fans can't even fathom because it's like, how do you do it? And I was
Yeah,
thinking the same thing for all this time.
yeah, it's it becomes part of the job, and sadly some people get jaded, right, and they get to a point where they don't even appreciate being at the game. And look, that happens, I understand it, and it's everything's not for everyone, and everyone doesn't look at it the same way. But I look at it as you do. I look at it as my career has afforded me the opportunity to get to do some special things. And look, I also like to think that you earned those opportunities by working hard, being focused, and not, if all you're focused on is getting to go to the games on for free, you're probably not going to be very successful in your career. It's a perk, it's something that's there, but it's only there if you're willing to put in the hard work that needs to be put in to allow you to have those opportunities.
And when you were I guess moving up the proverbial ladder, were you able to go to these different games, or is
No,
this something you had to like build your reputation up to doing?
without question, had to build up to it, and you can't look at the people above you and be jealous of them and say, why do they get to go and I don't get to go? To me, it just became more of a challenge, right? It's like I want to get better and better so that I can reach a point in my career where I have the authority to make those decisions for myself or for my staff, and I have the opportunity because the people that I work for feel like I should have that opportunity because I've earned it. And I think that's true of anything in life. I mean, if someone looks at this and says, I'm going to go down that path because I just want to go to the games for free, their chances of being successful probably aren't that great because they're not committed to what matters most, which is, doing a great job. And if you do a great job, those things come with it.
And for you, developing this mindset, was this something you had to grow into, or is this something that just kind of clicked for you because the passion for sports, you eventually envisioned yourself getting to that point?
Well, I never even, to be honest with you, I never considered, never even dreamed that I would ever go to a World Series game or a Super Bowl when I was coming up, as you say, the proverbial ladder. I was trying to support, I got married the first time when I was really young. I was trying to support a family. I was trying to earn a living. And so to me, it was about nothing more than being the very best I could be at whatever my prescribed job was at that time. And to be quite honest with you, until I went to that first Super Bowl and I guess that would have been 97, the beginning of 1997. I didn't even think that would ever be a reality. And even when I did it then, I thought it was going to be the exception and not the rule. So, that was, and maybe that's why I appreciate it as much as I do now, because it never was really even a goal. My goal was just to be the best I could be at what I was doing, and to me, that meant a good work ethic. It meant all the things my parents taught me. I had great parents, and they taught me, if someone's going to pay you to do a job, then you give them everything, even if you don't like them or don't agree with what they want you to do. As long as you're cashing that paycheck, you owe it to them to make them look as good as you can make them look, to do as much as you can do to provide for the success of that business and what they determine success to be. And that was my Midwest upbringing. Work hard and earn it. And I was just lucky enough to continue to advance because I had a lot of really smart people help me along the way. And here I am.
So you've been to multiple cities between Chicago, DC, Pittsburgh, Dallas. Those four, besides DC, or beside, I mean, the three, Chicago, Pittsburgh, and Dallas, they're all pretty much known for their sports teams rather than like for DC politics. What makes them each unique? Because they all revolve around the same, they're all known for the same sports.
Yeah, I never worked in Chicago. I was born in downstate in a small town, and I worked in some stations in smaller cities around Illinois. But yeah, to be honest, it's not even about where I've lived, but we talk about it a lot when we look at sports radio across the country. We have radio stations in many different cities across the country. Cumulus owns a lot of different stations, and there are hotbeds for different things. I mean, New York is a baseball town. It's not that every sport isn't popular there, but the Yankees drive it. Chicago is more of a baseball town, frankly, because of the Cubs and the success that they've had. Even though the Bears clearly have massive popularity, and relatively speaking, so do the Blackhawks. Dallas is absolutely a football town. DC, a lot of people don't realize, is a big hotbed for high school basketball primarily, but college basketball as well, with Georgetown being there and Maryland always for many, many years. And so you see the different love for the different sports, across these different cities, and what resonates in those towns. And there are definitely some things that have come out of either who owns the team and how successful the team has been, or just the way people in that city grew up, and what they grew up around. And Pittsburgh, by far a big football town. High school football is huge in Pennsylvania as well as Texas, and so I just try to observe those things, because I think knowledge is power, and I think if you understand some of those regional tendencies and the regional fandoms, it makes you a smarter sports fan, and helps you, if you're going to move around in the media business, to appreciate and understand what matters to those individual communities.
And how has being in the sports media industry changed your perspective about sports?
I'd like to think that it hasn't. I think that, if I'm being honest, because I'm a fan first, and I try to always fall back to being a fan. And if you put it in the perspective of a fan, then you can still enjoy it. I guess if I'm being honest, I would say that, as you learn business and you grow older and you understand the business side of things and the economics of things, money, at times has been a real, driver of sports, sometimes in a negative way, and accept that the rich get richer, and the challenges get bigger, because everyone's following the money. But that money also has trickled into sports radio and sports media. So that's what's fed my family for lots and lots of years too. So I can't say that that's ruined it in any way. It just you look at it a little bit differently. But I still like to think that I can be a fan first. Certainly, the instant reaction to sports has changed dramatically with social media, and particularly Twitter, and people's ability to comment on every play that happens in the game in real time. That certainly has changed the landscape and made it interesting, and caused this whole society of instant reactors that is somewhat entertaining, and can be comical, and oftentimes can be really really wrong, because people react a certain way in the immediate moment something happens, and then they find out later, yeah, that what I thought I saw isn't what I really saw. But yeah, all that's entertaining, and all that plays into what makes sports media so popular.
And how has sports media grown over the period of time you've been in it, besides technology?
Yeah, I think it's just everything's gotten bigger, right? The dollars are bigger, the owners are richer, the players are richer, media companies that cover these teams, have are invested much deeper. I think what's changed probably the most is how close those partnerships are. I would say that when I first got in to the sports media business, there was still a pretty thick separation between church and state, media and the teams. And now it's not uncommon to find radio stations and teams in complete and total partnership with each other, working side by side on whatever their goals are. And there isn't that separation as much as there used to be, between the media covering the team and them itself. And that's changed it to some extent. But I still think, again, it's very entertaining. What I love about sports is there's winners and losers every night, which gives us something to talk about, because within the context of those winners and losers, there's goats and there's heroes, and there's just always something to talk about. And just when you think there's not, a huge story breaks, whether it's the Patriots filming the Bengals sideline, or Deflate Gate, or Tiger Woods and all of his trials and tribulations. Something's going to come up that is dramatic and interesting, and provides for some very entertaining, media coverage.
And for you, with being in the industry for a long time, where do you see this industry growing as the sports continue to grow as well?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be really fun to watch how we continue to capture sports in real time, and what that means for the industry overall. Of how much do people want to just have instant reaction, how much do people want to talk about it in long form shows throughout the days and the weeks leading up to and after games. And it just seems like there's always going to be a place for it. I mean, when you think about our society and you think about the social currency that exists in our society, it's weather and sports, right? The two safe areas where you can go with somebody new at work or in your neighborhood. The two safe places you can go is, hey, what do you think of this weather? And what do you think of the game on Sunday? And you're not revealing your political feelings. You're not revealing anything about, your most inner deep thoughts and where you are, but you're connecting with someone through weather and sports. And I think that currency is always going to exist, which is positive for sports media. And when you look at television in specific, live events are really the only thing that are getting terrific ratings these days, because everything else you can watch on your own. It's a consumer controlled world. People want to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, how they want. And the one thing that will get people to make an appointment and sit down is still live sports. I got to see that game in real time. I got to be on Twitter in real time. And that is powerful, and that is why I'm bullish on sports media continuing to be an important part of it. However, that from broadcast to digital platforms to whatever hasn't even been invented yet, there's always going to be a place to talk about the games, bitch about the games, yell about the coaches, yell about the play calling, and share your passion with like-minded fans in whatever way is the most popular way to do that in society.
I completely agree, because especially for me, it's like I can just go up to anyone and just say like, "Oh, you watched the game last night?" Like you said, it's much easier to talk about that instead of saying, "Oh, you see the political debate last night?" Because
Yeah.
you might be walking
Yeah.
into a death trap.
What do you think of this impeachment? Is probably going to get you in a real quick, firestorm that you potentially do not want to be part of. What do you think of the team on Sunday? Is pretty safe compared to
Yeah, especially because
that.
I feel like more people would rather debate sports rather than politics.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, no question. I agree with that. And look, there's people on the political side that think we're crazy for spending the time we spend on sports, and you know what? That's awesome. That's what makes the world go around. Different strokes for different folks, and I hope that never changes, because we need that diversity, and we need those you know different platforms and different stages for people to be able to express themselves, and that's what makes our country great.
Yeah, and like you said, it makes the world go round. So I do want
Yeah,
I want to ask you one more question. So
sure.
you've been to multiple games. I ask you what's your favorite moment or your favorite Super Bowl. I've asked you multiple things. I want to ask you, since you're a fan of multiple sports, who's the best athlete you've known or seen in your time?
Oh man, no one's really asked me. There's getting it down to one is really hard. I mean, I had the great fortune of being able to watch, Hank Aaron at the end of his career. So being a baseball fan, that one jumps out. It might be blasphemous to bring up Pete Rose, but if I just think about Pete Rose as a baseball player, he was so freaking fun to watch, because he really was Charlie Hustle. And there's going to be some people listening to this going, "Who's that? Pete Rose? Who's Charlie Hustle?" But I think in my lifetime, the most dominant athlete that I have enjoyed watching the most, quite frankly, is Tiger Woods. Because when you think about what he did single handedly for that sport, and not only was it a rarity for a man of color to do well in golf to begin with, when you look across the history of that sport, and then to have him become the dominant force that he was, and to see how he single handedly and individually lifted up the ratings of an entire sport, an entire organization, the PGA. He is responsible for driving the massive amounts of money that golfers receive for winning tournaments now. They used to get pennies compared to what they get now. And I think that's all because of Tiger Woods. And no disrespect to Arnold Palmer and Jack Nicklaus and the guys who came before him, but Tiger took it to a whole new level. And if you think about what he did, I gotta list him as the most dominant athlete that I've watched in my lifetime. I really think he's at the top of the list.
And for most people, I think a lot of people would agree, because I mean, growing up for me, I would hear Tiger Woods and like, oh yeah, that's the golfer, and I really wouldn't know other golfers. Yeah, Phil Mickelson, but besides him, I mean, there really weren't many people that dominated, especially in like the 2010s.
Yeah.
And like I said, I knew Tiger from the video game. I mean, the video game was literally named Tiger Woods PGA Tour.
Right. Well, it's why a lot of young people fell in love with Mike Tyson too, because of the video game. Tyson Punch Out was like the greatest video game, and he was for a moment in time the most dominant boxer that ever went into the ring. But because golf is an individual sport where you're playing against the course, I think that's the other reason I would say Tiger. Again, all those other athletes remarkable, but they had, they had cast, they had people around. Peyton Manning has got to be up on that list, and Tom Brady is still doing it. But they've had weapons, and they've had great coaches, and that's why I think if you hold me down, I would put Tiger at the top.
All right, Bruce, I want to say that was my last question, but if you want to plug in any information where people can find you or contact you, you can tell them right now.
It's been fun having this conversation. I talk a lot about media. It's been fun to talk mostly about sports. So thank you for having me on. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, it's real easy. It's bruce.gilbert@cumulus.com. That's my work email. That's how people reach me. And I don't apologize about putting out my cell phone number, because if someone thinks I can help them or they can help me and want to have a conversation, 214-412-4829, 214-412-4829. I give it out when I talk to college students, and I give it out when I'm at conference, because that's how the world should work. We should be able to connect with each other. If I can help you, someday you're probably going to be able to help. And I've learned that lesson in life. You don't burn bridges, and respect people for what they're going through when they're going through it. And if people, it does come back to you in very positive ways.
Bruce, I want to say thank you one last time, and I hope we get to connect again and talk sports another time.
It's been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Good luck with the podcast, and good luck with your career. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Oh,
Thanks,
yeah.
Jimmy.
Yeah, definitely, Bruce. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Everybody,
All right.
I'd like to say thank you for listening to the Sports Avenue podcast. This was episode 47. Episode 47th, excuse me. I will attach all social media descriptions below to follow. You can follow, like, comment, say whatever. Everyone have a great week. Have a great holiday. And don't forget, the Rover Sports starts here on Sports Avenue. Take care.